All right. Well, I'm going to get us kicked off. We already have
Right.
14 people
Okay.
in here, so we'll get started with some quick intros, and then we can dive into why we're here. So I'll start. My name's Molly Wheaton. I'm a co-founder at Earn Better. We're a company that uses AI to help people in the job search. All of our services are completely free, so if you're looking for support in your job search, feel free to check it out. Before Earn Better, I spent about 10 years at various tech companies in a few different roles spanning recruiting, operations, and client management. And I'm excited to be here today with Ashlie. Ashlie, do you want to do a quick intro?
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, I am Ashlie Journet. I am a wife, a mom, a corporate recruiter, and I am the owner of the Candidate Advocate Resume Writing Services. So, I help my clients realize to realize and articulate their value on their resumes. But I am excited to be here with you today, Molly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it's much appreciated that you're here. Um, so let's get to the reason why we're here. Ashlie and I were chatting about doing an event together, and we wanted to do something that could really help job seekers. So we asked people to submit their burning questions about the job search. We did that here on LinkedIn, as well as in an Earn Better newsletter. We got a bunch of questions, so thank you to everybody who submitted or sent something in. There was a bit of overlap in some of the questions. So in some cases, we combined those or broadened them up just so we can answer more questions for more people. We'll get to as many as we can, but if we don't get to yours, feel free to follow up with us. We'll try to address those one-on-one. And then lastly, feel free to comment, ask questions throughout the event in the chat. I'm going to try to stay present here in the conversation with Ashlie. So I might not be reviewing those in real time, but I'll try to keep an eye on those. And then we'll definitely take a look at the end. And we're definitely interested in hearing any of your questions, thoughts, or feedback. All righty. So with that, let's get started with the first question. Has to do with the ever elusive ATS. So got a few questions about this. I'll ask two of them because they're pretty similar. One person asked, why is my resume not getting past the ATS? And another person asked, why do I get these automated rejection emails? I know they're kind of tied. So let's start there.
Okay, so I will start with the auto rejection. We'll start there first. I think a lot of people think that the ATS system is some type of monster just spitting out resumes. But oftentimes, recruiters have the option to add a knockout question. So, for example, if you're applying for a project management role and this role requires 5 years of project management experience, and there's a question that says, do you have at least 5 years of project management experience? And you answer no, that can automatically disqualify you for the role. And another example, a few years back, I was rushing through a job application and it asked if I was at least 18 years of age or older. I selected no because I'm rushing through trying to fill out everything. That auto rejected me as well. So some of those knockout questions could be the reason why you're getting that auto rejected email. And what was the first question you asked? It was the first one for that.
Yeah. So the first one was, why is my resume not getting past the ATS?
Okay.
Why am I not getting, potentially interview or callback or update?
Okay. So aside from being auto rejected, the other thing is oftentimes it's recruiters looking at your resume. So for me, when I open a job requisition, I wait about a day or two. I go in and start looking at the resumes. And if the candidate's experience or their skills do not align directly with the job description, then I disposition. I hate to use the word reject. I like to say, redirect. So I send them a redirection email letting them know that they didn't get the job. So oftentimes it's because their skills don't align with it. But then also, if I have 115 candidates in there, if I go through the first 10 to 15 and I get a solid maybe 7 resumes, I send those over to the hiring manager first. If I'm hiring for one position and I can get maybe 5 to 7 candidates within the first 15 or 20 that I look through, I send those to the hiring manager first. And if they make a decision, then the rest of those candidates, unfortunately, they get dispositioned as well. I hope that answered the question well.
Yeah, definitely. So some of it has to do with the knockout questions. And then if you do get past the knockout questions, it is actually a recruiter reviewing your resume, not, some ATS robot. But given that there's typically a high volume of applicants, a recruiter typically will go through a certain amount until they have a short list of qualified candidates. And different recruiters do this in different ways, but it could be based off of when you apply, could be someone searching for a certain keyword. But, going through, getting a short list that's manageable and then moving forward from there. I think that
absolutely. But if I do I have a rec right now that has 3 positions. So in that case, I'm going to go through and pull a lot more. But if I just have one position, when you provide a hiring manager with too many resumes, that's where indecisiveness comes in. They want to start, they get confused. They may love this candidate and then they'll miss out on them because they're not making a decision because they want to, look at 20 to 30 more. So I make it a habit not to provide too many resumes at one time, just so we can still keep a streamlined hiring process.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, great. So the next question has to do with candidates being able to put their best foot forward. So we had a few people mention they've been out of work for a little while, but need to show that they are a good potential candidate. So in your opinion, what's the best way to stand out to a recruiter?
When you're having a gap on your resume. So me personally, I was out of work twice. So I've had a gap on my resume twice, being a stay-at-home mom. So I definitely recommend, if you have a gap in employment, to add that to your resume. If you were a stay-at-home parent, if you were laid off, if it was career development, or you were a caregiver for someone, I would list those things in your resume. And then when you get into the interview, being able to articulate that with confidence, right? So during that time, if you obtained a certificate, or if you've done any LinkedIn learning courses, or you participated in any projects or volunteer activities, I will make sure to elaborate on those things, just to let the recruiter or the hiring manager know that you are you've been staying up to date in your field. Because even being a stay-at-home mom, I have gained so many transferable skills during that time, though I wasn't in the workforce. Time management, keeping my babies on a schedule. There were so many different types of transferable skills that still added value to the workforce once I re-entered after staying at home with my kids for a while.
Yeah, I like that. So providing some color as to what you were doing during a potential gap, and also highlighting any transferable skills or things that you were doing on the side to kind of upskill or keep yourself current. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Okay, the next one. So we also got a few questions about interviewing. And this one's twofold. So I'll say both questions, but if you need me to repeat either, let me know. So the first one was, what is the best way to answer interview questions? And then conversely, on the other hand, what might be considered like a bad answer or maybe a red flag in an interview response?
So I think for a good response for an interview, really practicing the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, result. Practicing that over and over again. So for certain questions, I already have situations written down. I have like 3 or 4 go-to situations that I'll discuss. And I actually wrote down a STAR response, if you're okay with me going ahead and reading that. Okay, so just for, and I'm gonna look to the side because I typed this out. So if I were applying for a recruitment role today and I interviewed, so the question would be, tell me about a time when you were tasked with filling a difficult role under a tight deadline. How did you approach the challenge and what was the outcome? So first, we're going to address the situation. I was assigned to fill a role that had been open for over 90 days within a semi-rural area where competition was tough due to companies offering a higher compensation. So that's the situation at hand. Then the task would be the hiring manager was under pressure to fill the role as quickly as possible, and they were relying on me to find a qualified candidate, right? And then the action that I took. So I conducted an intake meeting with the hiring manager to understand their needs better, and then also to discuss the previous strategies that were used. And then I used Boolean search strings, created attention grabbing outreach emails. And then I also partnered with government agencies to get the role filled and to also build a pipeline of qualified candidates. And then the result for that was I filled the role within 23 days. And then I also exceeded the expectations of the hiring manager. So I'm listing the situation, the task that was given to me, the action that I took, and then the outcome from my task as well. So you just want to make sure that you have 3 or 4 good stories that you can use when those questions come up.
Totally. And I think practicing those ahead of time as well, having a few examples that you can pull from, and then practicing saying those out loud or kind of how you would convey those in an interview is really important. That way, when the question comes up, you already have something prepared and you feel a little bit more confident and comfortable talking through it because you've already practiced it.
And I also, it doesn't have to be, you can definitely hire a career coach to help you with interview prep, but I've been interview prepping with my husband. I sit with him whenever I have an interview, or one of my best friends, she had an interview recently and we just sat on the phone and went back and forth on how to answer these types of questions. So it's always a great idea. It doesn't have to be a professional. You can definitely practice with your friends or practice in the mirror with yourself as well. That all works.
Totally. We also have some free interview prep tools at Earn Better. So if folks want some support there, we'd be happy to help. But yeah, definitely practicing those out loud, even if on your own, is a great idea. And then the next part of that question, Ashlie, was if you have any examples or, like what would be considered maybe like a bad answer or any sort of like red flag in an interview response. Do you have any of those?
I do. So it's crazy enough. I hear candidates tell me that they left because they didn't get along with their manager or that, the job just sucked. And you really want to be careful. You don't want to speak negatively about your previous employer. And you can come up with another explanation. If they're asking why you left your previous job, you can easily say that you're looking for, a better opportunity to work with a company that better aligns, whose culture better aligns with your career goals and aspirations. It doesn't have to be that, your manager sucked, I couldn't stand my job, the pay sucked. You really want to steer away from that. So I've had candidates where I've screened them and they gave me great answers. And then they got into the interview with the hiring manager and told the hiring manager that they got into, a conflict with their manager and they didn't trust their manager. And it rubs the hiring managers the wrong way. So I would definitely steer away from the negativity when answering those questions.
Yeah, totally. +1 on that. It's never a good idea to badmouth the previous employer, even if you had like a really bad boss or you worked at a really bad company. Instead, just focus on what you're looking for and what you're interested in, and try to, just be a little bit more constructive and positive about that. That will probably come off a lot better in an interview versus.
And I feel like we've all had a terrible experience at work. I've left companies because of a manager, right? But I didn't go into the next interview and saying, you know what, I didn't like my manager. He sucked. He was a micromanager. I didn't do that. I wanted to find an opportunity with a company that better aligned with what I'm looking for currently in my career. So you just have to steer away from the negativity.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, cool. So the next question has to do with confidence, which I think a lot of, job seekers are struggling with. One person asked, how can I get comfortable talking about myself and what I bring to the table? Any tips or tricks or advice there? This person said that they sometimes will freeze or their mind goes blank. And They just don't want to come off as unqualified or, scatterbrained during an interview.
Again, practicing your storytelling is very important. And I think it's also important to note that people often, when I say people, this is including myself, I have a difficult time talking about myself. It's easier for me to highlight the achievements and the greatness in other people than it is for myself. It's easier to talk about other people. And for a second, before I have to talk about myself, or I walk into any interview, or I walk into a room where I have to speak, I always say a prayer and I ask God to adjust my vision, to help me see myself the way that He sees me, because oftentimes we are our worst critics, right? And it's also helpful to write down your achievements. You want to write down the impact and the value that you add to these companies, and you write these things down and you practice. Again, practicing with your friends, practicing with your spouse, practicing in the mirror. You can practice sitting by yourself, at the desk while you're writing it down. But I think that's the important piece. But you need to make sure that you're keeping track of those accomplishments for sure.
Yeah. Totally agree there. And, we've talked about practice a lot. And I think what helps you practice is the preparation. So like what Ashlie was saying, jotting down a couple of accomplishments or achievements and, just having those ready. And then doing research on the company and the place where you're interviewing and what you might anticipate in an interview beforehand. That way, there's always going to be some element of the unknown, but having some idea of what to expect can also help you feel a little bit more comfortable. There's a lot of resources out there to help with interview prep. Again, we have free cheat sheets, and you can also do free practice interviews at Earn Better, but also you could go look on Glassdoor. There's feedback from people who have gone through the interview process at that specific job. So just do everything you can in your power to research, prepare, and practice. And then when you get in there, take a deep breath, know you're, valuable and worthy, and just try to be calm and collected in how you're responding.
I agree with that. And I want to just add this as well. The companies that are reaching out to you to interview you, they're not doing you a favor by reaching out to you. They obviously seen something in you. So just know that you are more than qualified, because if you weren't, they wouldn't have called you. So really walk into that room with the confidence. And there are so many recruiters and career coaches, and talent acquisition professionals that do tons of LinkedIn Lives, and they are dropping so many gems on how to effectively articulate your value in those interviews as well.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay, next question. We had a few people ask about the importance of keywords and skills on their resume, and a little bit more specifically, how much should a job seeker focus on keywords when they're, customizing their resume for a specific job opening?
So for me, I'll use myself as an example. If I were to apply for a recruiting role, I'm going to look at that job description and I'm going to be looking for those keywords. So that may be full cycle recruiting, Boolean searching, that may be candidate screenings, right? You want to look at the keywords or identify those keywords within the job description. And then on my resume, I have a key skills and technical tools section where I'm going to list those skills and then some of the technical tools that I utilize. For example, I utilize SuccessFactors as my applicant tracking system in my current role. So I'm going to list SuccessFactors in that technical tool section. But when I get down to each job underneath there, I'm going to put that, how I leverage SuccessFactors. So I leverage SuccessFactors to manage, 20 to 30 recs at a time. So you want to make sure that you're listing those technical tools and skills, but also listing how you leverage them so that the hiring manager or the recruiter can know the ways that you use them in your everyday task at work.
Yeah. And I think what I would add there, that's a great answer, is, look at the job description, understand what's most important to the hiring manager. If something's listed 12 or 15 times on the JD, it's probably a pretty important skill. And if you have it, you should add it. But also, don't kill yourself and spend 30 minutes tinkering every single resume. You don't want to over engineer it, but take a cursory glance, quick overview, and then go from there.
And then to add to that, you're right. Sometimes people overcomplicate it, thinking you have to take an hour to tailor each resume. If someone is I have quite a few clients that are in project management or program management. If you're applying to the same roles, you may only have to make small tweaks, because the majority of the program manager roles, they're using the same verbiage in their job description. So it doesn't take a lot of tweaking unless you are really applying to, let's say you want to be a recruiter or a business partner, then you say you want to go into project management. Of course, that's going to take a lot more tweaking to your resume to tailor it.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. So we do have a few more questions. I think, Ashlie, if you're okay with it, should I look through the Q&A and ask one from the audience?
You can.
Okay, let's see. So, we were talking about getting applications in early and how, you might look through the first X amount of candidates to look for, your short list of qualified. Somebody asked, is there a sweet spot for when you apply to a position? So like, should job seekers avoid recs that have been open for a while or have a certain amount of applications already?
This is a tricky question. Okay, let me try to answer this. It's a tricky question because I oftentimes, if the role is in a hard to fill area and the role is open for 30 days plus, it can very well mean that we're still recruiting for that position, right? But on the other hand, we may already have someone that's accepted an offer and they're in the background stage, so the rec is still open. I would still say apply even if the rec has been open past 30 days, because there have been instances where a candidate hasn't made it through the background process, or they changed their mind. Or for example, I had a candidate that was supposed to start yesterday. They didn't show up for work. They ghosted us, right? But now I'm going back through that candidate pool that we previously had to find more qualified candidates for the hiring manager.
Yeah. And also, sometimes you see those big numbers as far as the number of folks who have applied. But what I've heard from a lot of recruiters is that a large portion of those folks aren't qualified. So whether it's knockout questions, skills, or experience. So if it looks like it's a really good fit and you're really excited about it, I would still throw your, hat in the ring, and not just, not apply because there's a lot of applicants. But at the same time, if you could, set up alerts for companies that you're interested in, or, try to get your applications in early for roles, that can certainly help.
And I'll piggyback off that. I think that's correct. When I look through resumes, just say I'm going through 40 or 50 of them, right? There may only be like 8 or 9 candidates that really make it through because they have the skills. Some people, I feel like some candidates don't fully read the job description and just apply to the role. Or some of them may be qualified, but their resume really doesn't articulate their skills and experience. So they're getting rejected. And you're right, maybe only 7 or 8 of them out of that 40 or 50 will make it through to the hiring manager. So that's spot on.
Awesome. We had another good question from the audience. What's the best way to fill out a salary requirement when you're filling out an application if you don't know what their salary range is at the company?
So for me, I list the salary in every single job description, right? And I still have candidates apply and put a number that's way above what we're offering. But if the comp is not in there, and it's allowing you to type something other than numbers, I would just put negotiable in there. I do have candidates that still put negotiable in there. If you can't put negotiable and it has to be numbers, really put the number that you're looking for, right? If it's too high, they're going to reject you, and you didn't want them to waste your time anyway, right? You don't want to waste your time going through a phone screen and they can't meet your comp requirements or even come close to it. So if you only have the option to put a number in there, put the number that you are really looking for. This will save you time and the recruiter time as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because you don't want to put something lower in hopes that you might get an interview, because then when it comes down to the offer, if you say
Yeah,
something higher, you've basically just wasted your time and theirs. Just be honest, and if it's not a fit, then on to the next.
I agree 100%.
Okay, I'll do one more from the audience, and then I have one more on our list that I'll go through. Someone asked, when is the best time to apply for a job? Does it matter, like morning or evening or, day of the week?
No, it really doesn't. I will say this: if you see a job posting over the weekend, I think it's great to apply over the weekend, because on my Mondays are when I really go through and I look through all of those resumes, send them over to the hiring manager. And the thing about me is, I do not review resumes and then reach out to candidates first. I review resumes and then send them to the hiring manager to ensure that the candidate's expertise and experience is something they're interested in. And this helps me not to waste the time of the candidate by screening them, and then the hiring manager doesn't want to speak to them in the first place, right? So I review resumes really on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Those are the days that I typically review resumes in the ATS, but there's really no right time to apply.
Yeah. Okay. Helpful. Okay. So the next question has to do with reaching out to recruiters. We had a couple people say that it's recommended that they reach out to recruiters, but they don't always get a response. I know this is kind of a tricky one, but
Yes.
can you shed some light on this and sort of, how folks should approach recruiters, and maybe like what's a good example versus a bad example of reaching out to a recruiter?
Absolutely. I first want to say this. I know there are tons of recruiters, including myself, that get an overload of DMs. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, because I want to respond to every single person. But when I hold myself accountable to responding to every single person, I get overwhelmed. It's a lot, because I work my 9 to 5, right? I have a family, and then I also own a business. So I don't always have the time to get back to every single person, right? However, I still think it's beneficial to reach out to a recruiter. I've done it, and it helped me land an interview and a job offer. And I do take the time to respond to candidates whenever I get a well-written DM. So about 2 weeks ago, I had a candidate reach out to me, and he said, "Hey, Ashlie, I applied to XYZ position at your company. I would love to learn more about the position or hop on a call with you." And they gave me a little bit of information about their experience, right? And although I wasn't the recruiter that was working on that position, I reached out to the recruiter within our company. She pulled his application. Although he wasn't a good fit, she did provide me with feedback. So I sent him a quick voice note, just providing him with feedback, letting him know why he wasn't a great fit for the role and what the hiring manager was looking for. Then I also told him if he's seen anything else and applied, to definitely, reach back out to me. Those are the types of DMs that I have no problem with responding to. But then on the other end, I get the DMs to just say, "Hey, I need help finding a job." Or someone would just post their resume, attach their resume, and say, "Hey, please let me know if I fit any of the roles within your company." And I don't have the time or the bandwidth to look at your resume, then go look at all of our openings to see what you qualify for, right? So I am more prone to responding to the people that have already applied to the position, have the rec number, and they give me a little blurb about what they're looking for. So that was a good example. The first one, that was a good example, and I responded, and he was very happy and grateful for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's sort of like, help me help you.
Yep.
Because I'm in the same boat. Like, I'll get DMs that are just like, I need to get a job, but it's, give a little bit more context about the types of roles you're
Yep.
looking for, the types of companies, or like where an intro might be helpful. Like, just saying
Yeah.
you need a job. It puts the work on the person that you're asking a favor from already. So just try to give
Yeah.
them a little bit to work with. And I think you'll probably see better results than something more generic.
But then also looking at the recruiters, looking at their profile to see what they recruit for, right? So I have people reach out to me and say, hey, I'm looking for a job in finance, or I'm looking for a job in HR or recruitment. But the company that I actually work for, we are a supply chain company. So I hire for supply chain management roles. So in inventory management with purchasing and procurement and site operations manager. So it's also imperative that candidates do research to see exactly what types of roles the recruiter recruits for, and see what their company does as a whole before you reach out as well.
Totally. All right. Well, we're at time. Ashlie, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate everything that you've shed light on. Super, super helpful and valuable. We did have a handful of questions that we didn't get to. So for those folks, we can, feel free to shoot us a message and we can try to address those one-on-one. Or maybe if Ashley's open to it, we'll do another one of these in a few weeks or a few months, and we can address a few more of these. But thank you, everybody, for chiming in. If you have any feedback, comments, etc., please reach out. Let us know. But otherwise, thank you again, Ashlie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
And
for having me. I appreciate it.
hope everybody has a good rest of their week, and good luck to all the job seekers out there. We know it can be really tough. It's a very hard market, but we are rooting for you, and we hope something good comes your way soon.
Bye,
All
everyone.
right.